In the dim twilight of an era marked by ceaseless conflict and unfathomable mysteries, whispers of a legendary sovereign, revered and feared in equal measure, have circulated through the annals of history and the far reaches of forgotten lands. This figure, shrouded in myth and ambiguity, is known only by the ominous title, the Dark King. As we embark on this journey of inquiry and exploration, it is essential to set the stage without delving into the intricate details that will be uncovered in subsequent chapters. Instead, let us first orient ourselves with the broader context in which these legends and questions have flourished. At the heart of our tale lies a world where shadows stretch longer than the light and ancient powers stir beneath the surface of everyday existence. Here, myth and reality blur, leaving us to wonder, can one man, or perhaps a spectral force, truly command such influence over the hearts and minds of countless souls? The legend of the Dark King emerges from a landscape defined by turmoil, intrigue, and the relentless passage of time. It is a story born from the collision of ambition and destiny, where the line between heroism and tyranny becomes increasingly blurred. The era we explore is one of transition, a period where the echoes of bygone conflicts resonate in the present, and the hopes of a brighter future are tempered by the lessons of a turbulent past. Throughout this time, the notion of a singular dark figurehead has evolved into a symbol of ultimate authority and profound mystery. To some, the Dark King embodies the embodiment of all that is feared and repressed. To others, he represents an enigmatic beacon of power capable of uniting disparate forces under a single banner. In our exploration, we do not seek to resolve these polarities immediately, but rather to invite you, the observer, to ponder the essence of authority and the nature of myth. This investigation is not a mere recounting of tales, but an examination of how legends are woven into the fabric of collective memory. Our narrative is framed by the understanding that history is not solely the domain of documented events and verifiable facts. It is also the realm of stories passed down through generations, stories that shape perceptions, inspire actions, and sometimes even alter the course of destiny itself. In the retelling of this particular legend, we encounter questions that defy simple answers. Is the Dark King a historical figure who wielded undeniable power, or is he a composite myth constructed to embody the fears and aspirations of an era in flux? The terrain of our inquiry is vast and layered. It spans ancient battlegrounds and crumbling fortresses, transcends the ephemeral boundaries of mortal ambition, and reaches into the arcane recesses of forgotten lore. What remains constant, however, is the enduring allure of the mysterious figure, whose shadow looms large over both history and imagination. Our exploration will gradually peel back the layers of time, hinting at the myriad factors, from political strife to mystical traditions, that have contributed to the legend's formation. Yet, for now, we must accept that the details lie hidden in the depths of a story still unfolding, a narrative marked by uncertainty and the ever-present interplay of light and darkness. As you listen, observe, and question, remember that this prologue is but the opening note of a symphony, a prelude designed to evoke curiosity and set the stage for the complex interplay of forces that will be examined in the coming chapters. The journey ahead promises revelations and debates, each segment building upon the last to form a tapestry of intrigue that challenges our perceptions of history, myth, and the elusive truth behind the Dark King's existence. Within the unfolding saga surrounding the Dark King, several influential groups emerge as pillars of power and tradition. Their roles are distinct and form the framework of a complex narrative that has captured the imagination of many. Each faction, bearing its own legacy and purpose, contributes to the mystery and influence that has given shape to the legend at hand. Among these groups, the ancient houses stand as custodians of time-honored authority. Their lineage reaches back through countless generations, and their deep-rooted customs serve as reminders of an age when legitimacy was measured by heritage and ritual. They carry with them records, emblems, and age-old ceremonies that have, over time become intertwined with the mythos of the Dark King. To them, the very mention of his name is laden with the promise of validation for their ancestral claims and the preservation of a structured order in a turbulent world. Parallel to these storied families is an order of martial custodians who have long dedicated themselves to the defense of their realm's sacred principles. These warriors, bound by unwavering codes and rigorous discipline, embody the spirit of duty and valor. Their presence is marked by solemn oaths and relentless training, and they are seen as the living manifestation of the struggle between light and darkness. The martial custodians are tasked with the protection of relics, fortifications, and sacred sites, symbols of a legacy that extends far beyond the battlefield. Their stoic determination and physical prowess make them central figures in the unfolding debate, even as they remain firmly committed to the preservation of an age-old honor. Alongside these prominent groups, a circle of scholars and chroniclers plays a vital role in this grand tapestry. Associated with venerable academies, ancient archives, and secluded sanctuaries of learning, these individuals devote themselves to the collection and interpretation of time-worn texts and relics. Their mission is one of careful documentation and critical analysis, striving to piece together fragments of lore that have survived the passage of time. They approach the subject of the Dark King with a balance of cautious skepticism and earnest inquiry, determined to sift fact from embellishment. In their work, every faded manuscript and obscure inscription holds the potential to either affirm or question the existence of the legendary figure, making their role indispensable in maintaining the integrity of the historical narrative. A third faction emerges from the shadows in the form of secretive societies and underground networks. These groups operate well beyond the reach of established institutions, enveloped in mystery and ritual. Their origins remain concealed, and their practices often diverge sharply from the mainstream. For these practitioners of hidden lore, the Dark King represents an archetype of transformation, a catalyst capable of upending conventional order. Their influence, though exercised in whispers and coded exchanges, permeates the less visible layers of society. They are the custodians of forbidden rites and obscure symbols, continually challenging the prevailing interpretations of the legend. Their activities invite intrigue and suspicion, providing an undercurrent of dissent that complicates the broader discourse. In contrast to these organized entities, there exists a vibrant segment of the population whose cultural expressions have enriched the narrative. This community of storytellers, bards, and local historians preserves the tale through oral tradition and folk art. Their accounts are imbued with the immediacy of personal experience and communal memory, offering a more intimate perspective on the Dark King. These voices, though lacking formal authority, are crucial in ensuring that the legend remains accessible and relatable. Their narratives, passed down through generations, capture the emotional and moral dimensions of the myth, reflecting the hopes, fears, and lived realities of everyday people. They present a counterbalance to the lofty claims of institutional custodians, reminding all that the impact of such a legend is measured not only in grand deeds, but in the intimate details of human life. Complementing the aforementioned groups are the custodians of spiritual wisdom. These individuals are steeped in ritual and mysticism, drawing on ancient practices and esoteric knowledge to interpret the layers of meaning behind the legend. Their role is not centered on political power or martial might, but on the exploration of deeper, often metaphysical truths. They decode the symbols and rites associated with the Dark King, proposing that his presence may represent forces that traverse the boundary between the mortal and the divine. With a focus on cyclical renewal, cosmic balance, and the interplay of fate and free will, they provide insights that elevate the narrative from a mere historical debate to a contemplation of eternal principles. Their interpretations, though often abstract, invite reflection on the ultimate nature of power and destiny. Another strand in this intricate weave is formed by a coalition of individual critics and free thinkers who challenge the established narratives. Composed of maverick researchers, radical poets, and independent philosophers, This group insists on questioning long-held assumptions. They scrutinize inconsistencies in the traditional accounts and propose alternative theories that often deconstruct the legend into a series of overlapping phenomena rather than a singular, unified figure. Their contrarian approach fuels a dynamic discourse, ensuring that the prevailing narrative remains subject to continuous review and debate. By refusing to accept any version of the story without rigorous examination, these dissenters maintain a vital tension within the broader discussion, compelling others to reconsider and refine their interpretations. In the interplay between these varied factions, one discerns a delicate balance between reverence for tradition and the impulse for transformation. The ancient houses anchor the narrative in the certainty of the past, evoking memories of an era when power was inherited and ceremonial. Meanwhile, the martial custodians embody the timeless struggle of honor versus chaos, their presence a constant reminder of the enduring value of duty. The scholars and chroniclers, with their relentless pursuit of evidence, serve as the analytical backbone of the debate, preserving fragments of lore that might otherwise be lost. The secretive societies, operating in the shadows, infuse the discourse with mystery and challenge conventional wisdom. The voices of common folk, rich in emotional nuance, ground the legend in everyday experience, while the spiritual interpreters elevate the myth to a realm of cosmic significance. Finally, the dissenters ensure that no single perspective prevails unchallenged, fostering a vibrant environment of perpetual inquiry. Each of these groups contributes a unique layer to the multifaceted tapestry of the Dark King legend. Their roles, though distinct, intersect to form a collective portrait of a myth that continues to provoke questions about history, power, and the human condition. Their presence enriches the narrative by introducing a spectrum of perspectives that challenge simple answers and invite ongoing exploration into the heart of one of the most enduring mysteries of our age. The path that led to the current enigma was marked by a confluence of transformative shifts and upheavals that reshaped the cultural and political landscape. Over time, deep-rooted traditions began to unravel as long-standing power structures started to show signs of decay. A growing sense of disillusionment permeated communities, with established norms increasingly questioned by the emerging generation. This simmering unrest was neither sudden nor isolated. It had been brewing quietly as disparate factions and isolated events gradually converged, setting the stage for the dramatic manifestation associated with the Dark King. In the years preceding the present circumstances, the foundations of societal order were challenged by an intricate blend of ideological divergence and unforeseen environmental influences. Once stable alliances faltered under the weight of rapid modernization and the erosion of conventional authority. A notable shift occurred when traditional methods of governance and control were supplanted by more ambiguous, decentralized forms of influence. As old loyalties were re-examined, the collective memory of past glories and missteps was brought into sharper focus, igniting a debate about the legitimacy of inherited power. The tension between reverence for the past and the desire for radical reinvention became a recurring theme across the region, generating fertile ground for mythic interpretations to arise. The widespread transformations were also linked to economic factors that disrupted the established order. A gradual transition from agrarian practices to new economic models induced uncertainty and competition, creating a landscape where resources became both coveted and contested. Traditional patrons of cultural heritage found themselves pitted against emerging groups advocating for progressive change. This economic dislocation, coupled with the shifting balance of wealth and influence, instigated a re-evaluation of what constituted rightful authority. As communities grappled with these tensions, the search for a unifying figure became a potent symbol of hope and stability, a role that the Dark King would come to embody in the eyes of some. Simultaneously, a series of symbolic events, seemingly random yet interconnected in their implications, catalyzed the transformation of collective sentiment. Natural phenomena, Unexpected alignments of celestial bodies and other inexplicable occurrences were interpreted by many as omens, signaling the onset of a new epoch. These incidents, while not universally accepted as definitive signs, contributed to an atmosphere of anticipation and uncertainty. The interplay of these factors fostered an environment where traditional narratives and emergent myths coexisted uneasily, paving the way for a figure who could reconcile conflicting impulses and embody the dual nature of hope and dread. Cultural exchanges and the dissemination of ideas via emerging communication channels further accelerated the transformation. As knowledge spread beyond the confines of isolated communities, broader audiences became exposed to alternative visions of leadership and destiny. These narratives, often conveyed through artistic expression and oral recitations, challenged the established hierarchy by offering reinterpretations of long-held beliefs. In some quarters, the idea of a singular transformative leader gained traction as a means to restore order amidst chaos, while others viewed it as an illusionary distraction from systemic issues. This dichotomy reinforced the complexity of the debate, as the symbolism attached to the potential emergence of the Dark King became entangled with the desire for both continuity and radical change. The gradual reordering of societal values was not merely a reaction to external pressures. It also stemmed from an intrinsic need for renewal. In a world where the old paradigms were increasingly seen as inadequate to address the multifaceted challenges of a modern era, the allure of a figure capable of unifying disparate forces was undeniable. Deep cultural rifts and the erosion of time-honored certainties created a vacuum that many hoped could be filled by a leader who transcended conventional limitations. This longing was further intensified by a series of historical precedents, where moments of intense crisis had previously given rise to transformative figures whose legacies endured long after the resolution of conflict. Throughout this transformative period, narratives began to crystallize around themes of rebirth, decline, and the eternal struggle between opposing forces. The debates were not limited to political or economic realms. They extended into the philosophical and metaphysical dimensions of existence. Questions concerning the nature of destiny, the role of fate, and the potential for human agency took center stage. In this intellectual climate, the symbolism of darkness and light emerged as potent metaphors for the broader societal dynamics at play. The narrative that would eventually be associated with the Dark King was thus not a spontaneous creation, but the culmination of a prolonged period of introspection, contestation, and the search for meaning in a rapidly changing world. In summary, the antecedents of the current situation were a mosaic of gradual disruptions, political, economic, symbolic, and cultural, that collectively undermined the old order and paved the way for a narrative of transformation. These shifts, occurring over a protracted period, reconfigured societal expectations and prepared the ground for a leader whose identity would be inextricably linked to the themes of renewal and shadow. The interplay of these complex forces offers a window into the conditions that made it possible for a legend, so compelling and ambiguous, to take root in the hearts and minds of those yearning for clarity amid uncertainty. The progression of events connected to the legend unfolds as a series of transformative stages, each marking a shift in the collective understanding and expression of the myth. Initially, murmurs began to circulate in the shadowed corners of society, where isolated communities, steeped in ancient rites and time-honored practices, first sensed a subtle yet persistent disturbance in the established order. During this nascent phase, the idea that a singular figure could emerge to redefine the balance of power spread slowly, carried on whispered exchanges and discreet gatherings. Although the exact nature of these early signals remains partly obscured by the passage of time, they set the stage for a narrative that would gradually capture wider attention. This opening phase was characterized by a cautious curiosity, as individuals and small groups sought to interpret a series of inexplicable occurrences without fully grasping the broader implications. As the initial whispers evolved into more coherent narratives, The second phase saw the gradual layering of myth over memory. This period was marked by the deliberate documentation of odd phenomena and unusual alignments of events that hinted at something beyond mere coincidence. Chroniclers, inspired by both oral traditions and scattered records, began to compile fragmented accounts that interwove supernatural suggestions with the everyday struggles of their communities. Over time, these early narratives acquired a symbolic depth that transcended their literal interpretations. The recorded accounts, though varied in detail, contributed to an emerging framework in which the concept of a singular transformative leader took on an almost ritualistic significance. Each new account reinforced the idea that there was a hidden force in play, setting the stage for further developments that would soon capture the collective imagination. With the myth gaining a foothold in public consciousness, a distinct third phase unfolded, a period during which the concept evolved from mere speculation into an active catalyst for change. During this phase, disparate groups began to rally around the emerging symbol, each interpreting the notion of a dominant figure in ways that resonated with their own values and aspirations. This period was marked by a diversification of perspectives, as the myth was adapted to reflect regional concerns and cultural particularities. While some viewed the phenomenon as a herald of renewal and stability, others perceived it as an omen of impending transformation. The ambiguity of the symbol allowed for a broad spectrum of interpretations, and as it spread through various strata of society, the legend began to catalyze social and political reconfigurations. This stage of development was pivotal in unifying, or in some cases, polarizing communities by providing a common reference point around which divergent aspirations could be organized. Following the rapid dissemination and popularization of the myth, the fourth stage was defined by a consolidation of influence that led to the formation of organized movements and coalitions. In this period, the once loosely connected narrative solidified into a more structured campaign, drawing in supporters from multiple backgrounds. The consolidated narrative proved to be a powerful rallying call, inspiring coordinated actions and strategic initiatives aimed at addressing long-standing grievances and societal imbalances. Rather than serving as a simple figurehead, the idea took on a more complex role as a focal point around which strategic alignments were formed. This phase was marked by concerted efforts to mobilize resources, organize public demonstrations, and craft symbolic acts that further entrenched the myth into the collective psyche. At the same time, these actions brought about a noticeable shift in the dynamics of power as established authorities began to confront the implications of a popular movement energized by the promise of profound change. As the organized movements gained momentum, a fifth stage emerged, characterized by a gradual reconfiguration of the societal landscape. This period saw the interplay of ideological realignments and structural reforms, as the narrative provided a lens through which long-standing institutions were scrutinized and reimagined. In this environment, the myth served both as an emblem of resistance and as a blueprint for rebuilding a fractured order. The unfolding events during this stage were marked by a complex interplay between legacy structures and emerging systems of governance. While established entities sought to adapt to the evolving context by integrating aspects of the narrative, reformist factions pushed for more radical changes, advocating a departure from traditional paradigms. The tension between these forces was palpable, as each move on the political chessboard was influenced by the symbolic power of the myth. This dynamic, in turn, accelerated the pace of change, drawing in further participation from sectors of society that had previously remained on the periphery. Finally, the progression culminated in a phase of recalibration, where the long-term effects of the unfolding saga began to manifest in concrete societal transformations. In this final stage, the once abstract and shifting myth was increasingly reflected in tangible policies, cultural expressions, and redefined institutions. The movement's influence extended into everyday life, shaping debates on justice, heritage, and the nature of authority. though the exact contours of the emerging order remain a subject of active discussion and analysis. It is evident that the events have produced a legacy that will endure well beyond the immediate period of upheaval. The recalibration phase is characterized by a synthesis of old wisdom and new perspectives, forming a complex tapestry that continues to evolve in response to both internal and external pressures. It is within this context that the myth of the transformative leader has been reinterpreted as a symbol of enduring change, an idea that, despite its origins in whispered rumors and fragmented records, has grown into a force capable of reshaping the future. Each of these stages, from the initial murmurs to the eventual recalibration of society, represents a distinct chapter in the evolution of events surrounding the Dark King. The progression is not linear, but rather a dynamic interplay of ideas and actions that continue to influence the current state of affairs. As these phases interweave, they form a narrative arc that, while rooted in history, remains open to reinterpretation and ongoing debate. In the midst of mounting tension and diverging ambitions, a singular decision emerged as the fulcrum upon which the entire narrative would pivot. At a time when uncertainty had reached its zenith, representatives from various quarters assembled in a secluded forum known simply as the Conclave of Shadows. This gathering was not a mere meeting of like-minded individuals, but rather a convergence of diverse opinions and previously incompatible agendas. The atmosphere was charged with an intensity that transcended routine discourse, hinting at a transformation that would irrevocably alter the course of events. The council chamber, hidden within an ancient stronghold steeped in symbolism, became the stage for a dialogue that had been decades in the making. At the heart of the discussions lay the imperative to reconcile long-standing divisions and craft a unified vision capable of addressing the pervasive disarray. Although the conclave had been forewarned of the impending crisis through scattered omens and subtle provocations, it was the accumulation of contrasting perspectives that forced the assembly to confront the possibility of an irreversible change. In that setting, the concept of a single transformative figure, long whispered about in hushed tones, was finally subjected to the scrutiny of reason and collective resolve. Central to the deliberations was the recognition that the traditional channels of power had proven incapable of adapting to an ever-shifting landscape. Each voice in the chamber, whether drawn from the ranks of established guardians, scholarly archivists, or grassroots advocates, contributed insights that illuminated the limitations of outdated structures. It soon became evident that the only viable path forward was to embrace a decisive realignment, one that would dismantle the old paradigms and usher in an era defined by renewal and innovation. Amid heated exchanges and measured compromises, a proposal surfaced that promised to integrate the strengths of past traditions with the exigencies of the current moment. This proposal, radical in its implications yet tempered by pragmatic foresight, called for a reconfiguration of authority that would rely less on inherited hierarchies and more on adaptive, merit-based leadership. The decision was not reached by the insistence of a single faction, but was the product of painstaking negotiations, during which the collective acknowledged the gravity of their responsibility. In the chamber, deliberations stretched deep into the night, marked by fervent debate, reflective silence, and moments of unexpected accord. Every participant was compelled to confront the reality that their actions or inactions had contributed to an environment of instability. Thus, the decision to endorse a new model of governance was seen not as a repudiation of the past, but as an essential evolution in response to the challenges of the present. The delegates ultimately resolved that the emerging figure, forever associated with the title of the Dark King, should serve as a catalyst for restructuring rather than a mere embodiment of despair or dominion. This pivotal moment crystallized the notion that transformative leadership must be both a product of its historical context and an agent of radical change. As the decision was formalized, the Assembly adopted a series of measures designed to implement the new vision. These measures included the creation of transitional committees, the reallocation of resources to nurture innovation, and the establishment of mechanisms for continuous dialogue between disparate groups. The agreement was accompanied by solemn vows that underscored the urgency and seriousness of the task at hand. Each delegate, regardless of their previous allegiances, accepted that the ramifications of this choice would reverberate far beyond the confines of the chamber. The resolution was not merely an administrative maneuver. It was a symbolic severance from an era defined by rigidity and compartmentalization. The transformation was to be embodied by a figure whose emergence would signal a departure from established norms, a figure whose very presence would challenge entrenched perceptions of leadership and authority. In the days that followed, the echoes of the Conclave's decision began to permeate every layer of society. The announcement reverberated through public forums, artistic expressions, and even clandestine gatherings, each interpreting the choice in ways that reflected their own hopes and anxieties. The shift heralded by the decision became a touchstone for future actions, inspiring a renewed commitment to collective problem-solving and adaptive governance. It was understood that while the immediate decision marked a critical juncture, it was only the beginning of an ongoing process of redefinition and reconstruction. The legacy of that fateful meeting would come to be seen as the turning point in a saga that reimagined the relationship between power and responsibility, a moment when the theoretical ideal of a unifying, transformative leader was transmuted into a concrete plan for societal renewal. This watershed event, encapsulated in the Conclave's resolute determination to embrace change, stands as a testament to the power of decisive action in the face of uncertainty. It reaffirmed that even amidst profound discord, the possibility of crafting a new order remained within reach, a belief that would continue to shape the unfolding narrative and offer hope to those willing to reimagine the boundaries of possibility. The ripple effects of the recent decision have cascaded across every corner of the known universe, leaving an indelible mark on societies and institutions alike. In the wake of the transformative choice, established systems that had long relied on static hierarchies found themselves in a state of abrupt realignment. Communities that once adhered to time-honored customs were forced to confront a new reality where power and influence could shift rapidly. The very fabric of governance, once woven tightly with predictability and tradition, now bore the unmistakable signs of change, a disruption that was felt immediately by all who depended on the old order. Economic centers, once bastions of stability, experienced a sudden reordering of resources and priorities. Markets that had operated under familiar rules were thrown into a state of flux as investors and merchants scrambled to reassess their strategies in light of the newfound uncertainty. Trade routes, both literal and metaphorical, were reconfigured, prompting a re-examination of long-held alliances and commercial agreements. This financial upheaval was not confined to the highest echelons of power. Local economies, too, felt the tremors of a shifting paradigm. Business leaders and small traders alike found that the basis of their transactions was no longer secure, instilling a sense of urgency to adapt to an environment that favored agility and foresight over rigid tradition. Social structures, which had previously provided a measure of identity and belonging, also underwent a rapid transformation. Institutions that once offered clear guidelines for behavior and responsibility began to evolve into more fluid networks of shared values. In neighborhoods and remote settlements alike, the change was palpable as individuals questioned long-standing beliefs and began to forge new communal narratives. The influence of the decision quickly permeated through public discourse, sparking debates in town halls, market squares, and digital platforms alike. This public engagement, marked by both fervent support and staunch resistance, underscored the deep and immediate impact the event had on everyday life. Cultural expressions, too, were redefined in the aftermath of the change. Artists, musicians, and writers seized upon the transformative moment as a wellspring of inspiration, channeling the collective uncertainty and hope into creative works. New artistic movements emerged almost overnight, with themes of metamorphosis, rebellion, and rebirth becoming prevalent. These cultural currents did more than simply reflect the times. They actively shaped the conversation, influencing public sentiment and swaying opinions in subtle yet profound ways. Public festivals, commemorations, and even spontaneous gatherings became forums where the implications of the decision were discussed and celebrated, creating a dynamic atmosphere of shared experience that resonated deeply within the populace. On a more immediate practical level, the change redefined relationships among different factions. The balance of power, once predictable and clearly demarcated, was now fluid and subject to rapid renegotiation. Key institutions were compelled to recalibrate their operations, forging new partnerships and dissolving old alliances in an effort to remain relevant in this altered context. The impact was particularly striking in regions where long-established norms had been the cornerstone of societal stability. Leaders in these areas found themselves compelled to adopt innovative approaches to governance, blending elements of tradition with the demands of modernity in an effort to ensure that their communities would not be left behind. The urgency of this recalibration was such that even the most conservative elements within the society could no longer ignore the call for change. In the realm of education and public discourse, a renaissance of inquiry was ignited. Universities, academies, and informal learning circles quickly integrated the implications of the decision into their curricula and debates. Scholars and thinkers, previously engaged in abstract analyses of historical phenomena, now found themselves at the forefront of practical problem-solving, tasked with interpreting the profound changes for a wider audience. This surge in intellectual activity fostered an environment where old dogmas were rigorously questioned and innovative ideas were given space to flourish. The shift catalyzed a new generation of thinkers who embraced the uncertainty of the moment, viewing it as an opportunity to redefine the very concepts of authority, responsibility, and societal progress. The immediate consequences of the transformative decision extended even to the realm of science and technology. Research institutions, which had long pursued incremental advances, suddenly found themselves pivoting toward radical innovation. Laboratories and think tanks mobilized resources to explore new frontiers, driven by the pressing need to align technological progress with the emerging societal framework. This reorientation sparked breakthroughs in fields ranging from energy management to communication systems, as scientists sought to harness the momentum of change to develop solutions that would better serve a rapidly evolving society. In every sphere, from the highest levels of government to the most intimate community gatherings, the decision associated with the Dark King's legacy left an unmistakable imprint. The immediate impact was multifaceted and profound, creating a cascade of changes that collectively redefined the relationship between power and responsibility, tradition and innovation. This moment of transformation has not only reshaped existing structures, but also opened a pathway for the emergence of new paradigms that continue to influence the unfolding narrative of a universe forever altered by the decisive shift in the balance of authority. The discussion surrounding the existence of the Dark King is marked by a constellation of unique and thought-provoking aspects that have ignited the imaginations of countless enthusiasts. One of the most intriguing points raised within fan circles is the juxtaposition of tangible relics with intangible memories. A number of ancient artifacts have been unearthed over the years, items whose origins are shrouded in mystery and that bear inscriptions or imagery that defy easy explanation. Some claim that these relics offer the only material evidence linking past events to the modern narrative of the Dark King. The inscriptions, when examined under different wavelengths of light, reveal patterns that many interpret as hidden messages, potentially encoded to be understood only by those initiated into an esoteric tradition. This blend of physical evidence and layered symbolism is frequently debated, with some enthusiasts proposing that these artifacts serve as anchors in an otherwise fluid mythos. Another compelling facet is the phenomenon of anomalous environmental occurrences that have been documented near sites reputed to be connected with the Dark King. In several remote locations, residents and amateur researchers alike report inexplicable variations in weather patterns, unusual electromagnetic disturbances, and even strange auditory phenomena that many insist are echoes of a greater presence. These occurrences are not easily dismissed as natural aberrations. Instead, they have evolved into a cornerstone of the narrative for those who believe that the Dark King's influence extends beyond the realm of human politics into the very fabric of nature. Detailed field studies and community-led expeditions have been organized in pursuit of these clues, each adding layers to the intricate tapestry of evidence or conjecture that fuels the ongoing debate. A subject of no less fascination is the persistent appearance of cryptic symbols in places as diverse as ancient ruins, abandoned temples, and even modern urban settings. These symbols, ranging from abstract geometric figures to stylized representations of regal insignia, are often linked by their proponents to a hidden code that supposedly chronicles the Dark King's secret legacy. Debates rage about whether these signs are remnants of an archaic language or a deliberate construct intended to communicate with future generations. Some in the community have even attempted to create comprehensive databases of these symbols, employing digital archiving techniques and collaborative platforms to cross-reference occurrences from disparate regions. This collective effort has transformed the study of these symbols into a global movement, uniting enthusiasts who view the Dark King as both a historical enigma and a perennial muse for creative reinterpretation. The intermingling of modern technology with traditional lore offers yet another distinctive angle. With the advent of high-resolution imaging, spectral analysis, and advanced data modeling, researchers have revisited long-discarded artifacts and faded manuscripts, hoping to extract new insights. The integration of these technologies into the investigation has provided fresh perspectives on age-old mysteries, prompting debates over the interpretation of results. While some argue that the data point unequivocally toward a hidden hand at work, others maintain that the evidence is too circumstantial to substantiate claims of an actual being. The interplay between rigorous scientific inquiry and the more speculative approaches adopted by grassroots investigators underscores the multifaceted nature of the question at hand. Within fan communities, a particularly lively discussion centers on the psychological and sociological implications of the Dark King's legend. Many propose that the myth functions as a mirror, reflecting collective fears, aspirations, and the inherent need for a unifying figure during times of societal stress. In this interpretation, the Dark King becomes less of a singular entity and more a symbolic projection, an archetype that embodies the tensions between order and chaos, light and shadow. This perspective invites debates about the power of myth to shape human behavior, influence cultural norms, and even drive political change. The idea that the Dark King's existence might be a shared construct fueled by collective belief and the human propensity for storytelling is both provocative and deeply resonant, prompting a re-examination of the nature of reality itself. Another area that captivates fans is the literary and artistic reinvention of the legend. Across novels, graphic stories, and even experimental theater, the Dark King is reimagined in countless forms, each interpretation reflecting contemporary concerns and the evolving zeitgeist. These creative works often serve as both homage and reinterpretation, blending elements of historical narrative with fantastical embellishments that keep the legend vibrant and adaptable. The diversity of these artistic expressions has fostered an environment where debates are not confined to academic or historical circles, but are a vital part of popular culture. Every new work adds a unique dimension to the overall mythos, inviting readers and viewers to ponder the boundaries between history and myth. Finally, the transnational dialogue around the Dark King is an essential component of the modern discourse. Enthusiasts from varied cultural backgrounds contribute interpretations that draw on local legends, folklore, and historical experiences. This global exchange of ideas enriches the conversation by infusing it with a wide array of perspectives, ensuring that the narrative remains dynamic and resistant to a single monolithic explanation. As discussions continue to unfold in online forums, international conferences, and local gatherings, the question, Does the Dark King really exist? Remains a vibrant and evolving topic that challenges conventional wisdom and inspires ongoing exploration. Among the many figures who have emerged in connection with the enduring question of the Dark King's existence, several individuals stand out for their distinctive qualities and personal convictions. Their lives and actions have not only shaped the ongoing debate, but have also added layers of complexity to the narrative through their unique ambitions, moral quandaries, and personal vulnerabilities. One such figure is a scholar whose dedication to uncovering hidden truths has driven him to explore the boundaries of forbidden lore. Known for his relentless pursuit of rare manuscripts and arcane inscriptions, this academic's work is characterized by a rare combination of meticulous research and intuitive leaps of imagination. His approach, methodical and patient, has earned him respect among peers who value rigorous documentation, as well as among more speculative enthusiasts who see him as a bridge between empirical evidence and mythic interpretation. Yet his commitment to fact-finding often leaves him isolated from those who dismiss his conclusions as overly cautious, and his skepticism regarding hasty assumptions renders him vulnerable to criticism from both extremes. His aim is to provide incontrovertible evidence that either substantiates or dispels the existence of the Dark King, yet his greatest strength, the unwavering pursuit of truth, can also become his greatest weakness when it blinds him to the symbolic power of myth itself. Another prominent personality is a charismatic storyteller who has built a reputation for blending historical anecdotes with imaginative reinterpretations. This individual thrives on the art of persuasion, using compelling narratives to capture the public's imagination and incite passionate debate. With an innate talent for weaving together disparate threads of lore into a coherent tapestry, he presents the Dark King not as a static figure, but as a dynamic symbol capable of evolving with the times. His oratorical skills and charm have earned him a devoted following, yet the very same qualities have drawn suspicion from detractors who view his narratives as overly theatrical. While his primary goal is to inspire and mobilize communities through evocative storytelling, he occasionally sacrifices accuracy for dramatic effect. His strength lies in his ability to convey complex ideas through accessible language, but his weakness is found in the reliance on rhetoric that can sometimes distort rather than clarify the truth. A third influential character is a pragmatic activist whose life mission centers on unifying divided groups around the possibility of renewal. This individual has a reputation for pragmatism and steadfast determination, qualities that have enabled her to navigate treacherous political landscapes with a calm resolve. She is known for her strategic foresight, often organizing grassroots movements that bridge ideological divides. In her view, the Dark King represents a catalyst for change, a figure whose very myth can serve as a rallying point for those eager to challenge entrenched power structures. Her ability to translate abstract ideas into concrete actions has brought tangible improvements to communities that have long suffered under rigid authority. However, her pragmatic approach sometimes borders on compromise, leaving some of her supporters questioning whether she sacrifices too much of the original vision in her quest for stability. Her clear-sighted planning and persuasive negotiation skills are assets, yet her tendency to temper idealism with practicality can occasionally dilute the transformative potential she seeks. Another noteworthy individual is an independent investigator, a former insider turned critic, whose experiences within traditional power structures have led him to question accepted narratives. With a background in administrative service, he possesses an intimate understanding of institutional mechanisms and has used that insight to expose inconsistencies and hidden agendas. His investigations, characterized by a fearless confrontation of established norms, have brought forward controversial evidence that challenges the status quo. His unyielding stance against what he perceives as systemic cover-ups has earned him both admiration and enmity. Although his deep-rooted commitment to transparency and accountability is a formidable strength, it also exposes him to risks as powerful interests seek to silence dissent. His willingness to defy convention has made him a polarizing figure, While many see him as a truth seeker willing to risk everything for the sake of exposing reality, others argue that his crusade against institutional inertia occasionally leads him to disregard the nuanced interplay of myth and reality. A further individual of considerable note is an artist whose creative output has profoundly influenced public perceptions of the Dark King. This creative visionary employs various media to reinterpret the ancient symbolism associated with the figure, reimagining the legend in forms that resonate with contemporary audiences. Through his paintings, sculptures, and installations, he explores themes of duality, transformation, and the perpetual struggle between order and chaos. His work is celebrated for its emotional depth and the capacity to evoke introspection, yet it also attracts criticism for its ambiguity. While he intentionally leaves his creations open to multiple interpretations, some critics argue that his artistic license sometimes obscures the factual basis of the myth. His strength lies in his innovative approach to blending historical motifs with modern aesthetics, but his reliance on metaphor and allegory can sometimes be misinterpreted, fueling debates that detract from his intended message. Each of these individuals contributes a vital dimension to the broader conversation surrounding the Dark King. Their qualities, whether intellectual rigor, charismatic narration, practical activism, investigative defiance, or artistic innovation, provide distinct lenses through which the question of the Dark King's existence is continuously re-examined. Their goals range from a commitment to uncovering incontrovertible evidence to inspiring change through the transformative power of myth. While their strengths empower them to challenge conventional narratives and provoke critical debate, their vulnerabilities, be it isolation from mainstream thought, potential overemphasis on style over substance, or the inherent risks of challenging entrenched systems, remind the community that the pursuit of truth is as complex and multifaceted as the legend itself. Through their endeavors, these notable personalities not only enhance our understanding of the Dark King, but also serve as living embodiments of the eternal struggle between evidence and belief, reason and imagination. Their diverse approaches continue to fuel discussions, ensuring that the mystery remains a vibrant and ever-evolving subject of exploration and reflection. The discussion over the Dark King continues to be enriched by a wide array of unresolved questions and speculative theories that challenge our understanding of both history and myth. One recurring issue is the difficulty of reconciling disparate strands of evidence, from scattered archaeological remains to accounts handed down through oral tradition. Many remain skeptical about whether any of these pieces genuinely point to a single historical figure, or whether they have been retrofitted into a larger narrative by later generations seeking to explain past turmoil. Some argue that the relics themselves might have been misinterpreted over centuries, their origins obscured by layers of myth and the passage of time. In this view, what appears to be a consistent symbol or motif may simply be an artifact of collective memory, a mosaic of influences that, when viewed in isolation, suggest a hidden hand at work, but in reality reflect a broader cultural evolution. Another point of contention is the role of natural phenomena that have been linked to the Dark King by various observers. Unusual weather patterns, strange celestial events, and localized disturbances in the natural order are cited as potential manifestations of a mysterious force. Yet, despite numerous recorded instances, there is little consensus on whether these observations are connected by a common cause or are isolated incidents interpreted through the lens of an ever-evolving legend. While some researchers propose that these environmental irregularities are the tangible expressions of an otherworldly presence, others counter that they might be explained by natural cycles or coincidences that have become imbued with meaning over time. The absence of a definitive scientific correlation leaves room for further inquiry and debate, with each new incident adding yet another layer of ambiguity. Theories regarding the Dark King's origin also fuel heated debates among enthusiasts. Some suggest that he may have emerged from a forgotten dynasty, his rule a reaction to the collapse of an ancient order. According to this line of thought, his identity could have been deliberately obscured to protect a legacy that, if fully revealed, might disrupt established power structures. Alternatively, others speculate that the Dark King might not be a historical figure at all, but a symbolic embodiment of human fears and desires. In this interpretation, he functions as an archetype, a projection of the collective psyche that crystallizes at moments of profound social or political upheaval. Proponents of this idea point to recurring patterns in human history where similar figures have appeared to serve as rallying points during crises, suggesting that the Dark King might be less a person and more a perennial idea. Further complicating matters is the debate over the reliability of contemporary witnesses and the integrity of ancient records. Many accounts of the Dark King are derived from sources that blend observation with legend, making it challenging to disentangle objective facts from embellishments. Oral traditions, while rich in detail and emotion, are subject to alteration over generations, and written records from eras of turmoil often reflect the biases and agendas of their authors. This has led to a persistent question: to what extent have political interests or ideological leanings colored the narrative? Critics argue that the story of the Dark King may have been amplified, or even partially fabricated, to serve as a tool for social control or to justify radical reforms. The possibility that the legend was intentionally manipulated to inspire both fear and hope is a contentious point that continues to provoke inquiry among historians and theorists alike. Adding to the intrigue is the modern reinterpretation of ancient texts and symbols associated with the Dark King. Advances in technology have enabled researchers to re-examine faded manuscripts, cryptic iconography, and hidden inscriptions with renewed precision. Despite these efforts, the results remain inconclusive, with interpretations varying widely depending on the methodologies and theoretical frameworks employed. Some scholars argue that these texts reveal a coherent narrative that supports the historical existence of the Dark King, while others maintain that the evidence is too ambiguous to draw firm conclusions. The fact that every new analytical technique seems to raise as many questions as it answers underscores the elusive nature of the legend and the ongoing challenge of bridging the gap between myth and history. Speculation has also turned to the possibility of alternative dimensions or metaphysical realms playing a role in the Dark King's legend. A number of theorists have posited that the figure may represent a crossover point between the physical world and a shadow realm, a threshold where the boundaries of reality are blurred. This concept, while rooted in esoteric traditions, has gained traction in certain circles where discussions of energy fields, parallel realities, and cosmic alignments are taken seriously. Although this perspective remains highly controversial and largely outside the purview of mainstream academia, it has found a passionate following among those who believe that the true nature of the Dark King might lie beyond conventional explanation. The idea that our understanding of existence might be fundamentally incomplete continues to inspire creative hypotheses and challenges the limits of rational discourse. These unresolved questions and theories form a dynamic tapestry that keeps the debate over the Dark King perpetually alive. The allure of the unknown, combined with the interplay between empirical investigation and imaginative speculation, ensures that every new discovery or reinterpretation sparks further controversy. Each line of inquiry, whether focused on physical relics, natural phenomena, ancient texts, or metaphysical conjectures, adds to a mosaic of ideas that resist easy categorization. The diversity of opinions reflects not only the complexity of the subject matter, but also the human need to find order and meaning in a world where certainty is often elusive. As the conversation evolves, the persistent mystery of the Dark King remains a fertile ground for both scholarly debate and popular speculation. The enduring nature of the questions at hand is a testament to the power of myth and the capacity of collective inquiry to sustain interest across generations. In the absence of a definitive answer, the legend continues to serve as a mirror for our own uncertainties, inviting each observer to ponder the delicate balance between reality and imagination. The unfolding legacy of the Dark King continues to shape the future of the universe in ways that are as unpredictable as they are profound. Looking ahead, one can envision a series of gradual yet transformative shifts that will redefine the boundaries between myth and reality, order and chaos. As the narrative solidifies into a cornerstone of cultural memory, its long-term consequences will likely ripple through every facet of society, influencing governance, art, philosophy, and even the underlying structures of power. The prospect of a universe where the legend of the Dark King is accepted as an integral part of collective consciousness offers both promise and peril, suggesting that our understanding of history and destiny may be forever altered. One foreseeable impact is the evolution of political institutions that have, for centuries, relied on static doctrines and inflexible hierarchies. Over time, as the myth becomes increasingly embedded in the social fabric, leaders and reformers might draw upon its symbolism to advocate for more dynamic, responsive systems of governance. In some regions, this could lead to the democratization of power, where the authority of traditional elites is challenged by a new generation that values adaptability and innovation. Such a shift might foster environments in which dissent and debate are encouraged, ultimately creating societies that are more resilient in the face of unforeseen challenges. However, this same process could also breed instability if the infusion of mythic ideals leads to overly idealistic policies that disregard pragmatic concerns, potentially setting the stage for conflict between competing visions of the future. Culturally, the long-term effects of the Dark King narrative promise to be equally complex. As the myth is reinterpreted by successive generations, it is likely to inspire a wealth of creative expressions that push the boundaries of literature, visual arts, and performance. These new interpretations may blend historical echoes with futuristic imaginings, giving rise to cultural movements that question established norms and experiment with novel forms of storytelling. In doing so, the legend will not merely be a relic of the past, but a living, evolving symbol that reflects the changing aspirations and anxieties of societies. While such artistic revolutions have the potential to rejuvenate cultural dialogue and foster a spirit of inquiry, they may also provoke controversy among those who view the reimagining of sacred traditions as a threat to their identity and continuity. On a philosophical level, the enduring debate surrounding the Dark King's existence is likely to continue challenging our understanding of truth, memory, and the nature of reality. As scholars and citizens alike delve into the ambiguous interplay between historical fact and myth, the discourse may encourage a more nuanced appreciation for the role of narrative in shaping human experience. This evolving conversation could pave the way for a broader reassessment of how societies construct their collective identities and make sense of their past. By embracing the idea that myths can serve as both mirrors and molds for cultural evolution, future generations may develop a more flexible, empathetic framework for engaging with the uncertainties of existence. However, if the myth becomes a tool for manipulation or serves to obscure objective truth, it may also contribute to a climate of skepticism and distrust, undermining efforts to build consensus around shared values. Technological progress and scientific inquiry, too, are set to interact with the myth in transformative ways. Advances in data analysis, digital archiving, and even experimental archaeology might eventually unearth new evidence that either corroborates or refutes elements of the legend. Such discoveries could catalyze a renaissance in the study of ancient traditions, prompting interdisciplinary collaborations that bridge the gap between the humanities and the sciences. Yet, the inherent ambiguity of the myth means that even state-of-the-art technology may only add layers of complexity rather than definitive answers. This ongoing cycle of discovery and reinterpretation is likely to keep the question at the heart of academic and public discourse, ensuring that the myth remains a dynamic force in shaping future narratives. At the societal level, the enduring influence of the Dark King legend may eventually encourage communities to re-evaluate the relationship between power and responsibility. As the myth takes on a role as both cautionary tale and inspirational ideal, it could prompt reforms in legal, social, and ethical frameworks. For instance, a deeper understanding of the consequences of unchecked ambition or the dangers of rigid authority might lead to more balanced approaches in areas such as justice, education, and civic engagement. In this context, the myth may function as a catalyst for dialogue, enabling societies to address long-standing inequities and forge pathways toward more inclusive and equitable futures. Nonetheless, the risk remains that such debates might become polarized, with divergent interpretations fueling divisions that hamper collective progress. Ultimately, the long-term significance of the Dark King narrative is a story in itself, a testament to the power of myth to shape destiny. Whether the myth leads to the emergence of more enlightened forms of governance, sparks a cultural renaissance, or simply endures as a subject of endless debate, its impact on the universe will be profound and far-reaching. In the years to come, the interplay between historical reality and mythic imagination will continue to challenge our perceptions and redefine what it means to seek truth in a complex world. The transformation heralded by this enduring narrative is not unidirectional. It holds within it the potential for both constructive evolution and destructive fragmentation. The future, therefore, is a canvas upon which the myth will be continually rewritten, a reflection of our collective hopes, fears, and the unyielding quest for understanding in the face of the unknown.